In a recent extended interview with Somaliland National Television, Muse Bihi Abdi, the president of Somaliland, gave insight on the recent Memorandum of Understanding signed between Ethiopia and Somaliland, saying, I quote, "The recent agreement between Somaliland and Ethiopia highlights the shared mutual interests of both nations, aiming to further enhance their bilateral relations. It is a reflection of the fact that every president primarily serves the interests of their respective people. Notably, Ethiopia, being a landlocked country in the Horn of Africa with a significantly large population, has been eagerly seeking access to a port for a considerable period." Unquote. The president of Somaliland was asked what consequences or impact the Arab League and Egyptian presidents' threatening words could have on Somaliland. President Muse Bihi responded that, I quote, "President Sisi of Egypt reaffirmed his commitment to protecting Somalia's borders in response to the Arab League's resolution. However, when examining the borders of Somalia and the unity mentioned in both resolutions from a legal perspective, it is widely recognized under the African Union Charter that Somaliland is considered one of the African countries based on historical borders, with Egypt being a signatory country. The Arab governments at that time were aware of this fact. Therefore, it raises the question of which specific borders in Somalia they are referring to when discussing defense. Furthermore, the Arab League's assertion of defending Somalia inevitably invites scrutiny of the situation in Palestine, given its close proximity. The Arab League's efforts in Palestine have not achieved the same level of success as South Africa, which brought its case before the International Court of Justice, resulting in numerous resolutions. From a military perspective, intervention and assistance are crucial in Rafah. The differences between Somaliland and Somalia are ultimately matters for them to address independently." Unquote. The recent agreement between Ethiopia and Somaliland regarding the port has garnered attention from external powers due to its potential impact on the dynamics in the Horn of Africa region. These external powers have taken on different roles, expressing both support and concern regarding the deal. Ethiopia views this agreement as a chance to establish direct access to the sea and also recognizes Somaliland as an independent nation, which could set a precedent for international recognition. This port deal has further strengthened the relationship between Ethiopia and Somaliland, as both countries see advantages in terms of trade, security, and regional influence. Somalia has strongly opposed the port deal between Ethiopia and Somaliland. Somalia considers Somaliland to be part of its territory and views the agreement as an act of aggression. The deal has sparked anger in Somalia, leading to the recall of its ambassador from Ethiopia and the nullification of the port agreement. The port of Berbera in Somaliland, which is part of the agreement, is strategically located near the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, a major shipping route connecting the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. The port deal between Ethiopia and Somaliland, granting Ethiopia commercial and military access to Somaliland's gateway to the Red Sea, has drawn various reactions and tensions from different countries and entities. Egypt has expressed strong opposition and fury over the Ethiopia and Somaliland port deal. Egypt's concerns stem from its own ongoing dispute with Ethiopia over the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam or GERD on the Nile River. Egypt fears that the dam could threaten its water supply from the Nile. The port deal between Ethiopia and Somaliland is seen by Egypt as a potential threat to its regional interests and influence. Egypt has the ability to apply diplomatic pressure, potentially through the Arab League, to Ethiopia by rallying regional support against the port deal. Egypt has already shown solidarity with Somalia, which opposes the agreement, and has emphasized the importance of respecting Somalia's territorial integrity. While a direct military confrontation between Egypt and Ethiopia is unlikely, tensions between the two countries could escalate and lead to indirect conflicts or proxy wars in the region. The tensions between the two countries over the port deal and the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam issue could exacerbate regional instability. The United Arab Emirate's involvement in Somaliland and its development projects, including the port deal, has been seen as part of a wider rivalry among Middle Eastern powers. The UAE aims to expand its influence in the region, contrasting with other regional powers like Qatar and Turkey, who have significant influence in Somalia. Although the UAE halted work on a military base in Berbera, its influence in Somaliland remains high. The UAE has cordial relations with both Ethiopia and Somaliland and has been involved in various development projects in Somaliland, including the port deal. The UAE's interest in the port deal could be driven by its desire to increase its influence on both sides of the Gulf of Aden, which serves as a gateway to the global trade shipping route through the Red Sea and Suez Canal. Turkey has called for direct negotiations between Somalia and Somaliland while reiterating its commitment to Somalia's sovereignty. Turkey has expressed concerns about the port deal and emphasized the importance of resolving the issue through dialogue. The United States has not issued an official statement specifically addressing the Ethiopia-Somaliland port deal. However, the US has expanded its military footprint in the region and has strategic interests in the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden coastline. The United States, along with other major global and regional players, has sought to establish bases in the region. Somaliland is insisting on achieving recognition of independence from the United States before agreeing to any military arrangements. The possibility has been raised of using Somaliland's port and airport for emergency operations, rather than as a substitute for the base in Djibouti, as it does not impose any restrictions on the type or purpose of the military actions that can be carried out from the United States base on its territory. The United States game plan, if a base is established in Somaliland, would be to use the Berbera port as an alternative to the Djibouti military base to adjust its posture in the Horn of Africa region by partnering with the Somaliland government. This would give the United States a key geostrategic location to counter Chinese influence, protect trading routes, and deter human trafficking, terrorism, and piracy. However, it is important to note that these discussions may still have not yet resulted in a finalized agreement. China has shown support for Somalia and expressed concern over the Ethiopia and Somaliland port deal. China, like other external powers, is concerned about the potential impact of the port deal on regional stability. The deal has the potential to inflame tensions in the already volatile Horn of Africa region, which could have implications for China's economic and geopolitical interests in the area. China has been involved in various development projects in Somaliland, including the expansion of the Berbera port and the construction of pipelines and a refinery. China's interests in Somaliland could be affected by the port deal, as it may impact the dynamics of the region and potentially disrupt China's ongoing projects. China has been wary of growing ties between Somaliland and Taiwan since 2020 when they established representative offices. The strengthening of Taiwan-Somaliland relations has the potential to hinder some of China's interests in the region. China sees the Taiwan government's involvement in Somaliland as infringing on Somalia's sovereignty, and it wants to ensure that the Somali government doesn't recognize Somaliland. Somaliland and Taiwan both have aspirations for independence and seek international recognition, but there are notable similarities and differences between their situations. Both Somaliland and Taiwan assert that they have a distinct cultural, ethnic, and historical identity that sets them apart from the countries they seek independence from, Somalia and China, respectively. Somaliland has its own currency, military, passports, and holds its own elections, which have been observed and praised by international partners. Taiwan has its own government, military, constitution, and conducts its own elections, functioning as a de facto independent state. Somaliland is often regarded as more stable than Somalia and has seen little terrorist activity since 2008. Taiwan has developed a robust democratic system and has achieved significant economic growth, establishing itself as a separate entity from mainland China. Taiwan has received more international support and engagement compared to Somaliland. Taiwan has established diplomatic relations with a limited number of countries, while Somaliland has not achieved formal recognition from any foreign government. Taiwan has diplomatic relations with a few countries, although the number has decreased over the years due to pressure from China. Somaliland has been lobbying for recognition, particularly from the United States, but has not yet achieved formal recognition. The historical background and context of Somaliland and Taiwan's claims for independence are distinct. Somaliland was a former British colony and gained independence in 1960, but later joined Somalia in a federation that was eventually dissolved. Taiwan's situation stems from the Chinese Civil War and the split between the Communist Party-led People's Republic of China, or PRC, and the Nationalist Party-led Republic of China, or ROC, which retreated to Taiwan. If Ethiopia recognizes Somaliland as a sovereign state, it would have a profound impact on the region. Somaliland declared itself independent from Somalia in 1991, but has not been recognized by any country. Recognition by Ethiopia could encourage other countries to follow suit, potentially reshaping the geopolitical dynamics in the Western Indian Ocean. If the port deal between Ethiopia and Somaliland were nullified, it would have several geopolitical implications, alliances, and consequences in the region. Nullifying the agreement would likely be seen as a victory for Somalia and could potentially ease tensions between Somalia and Ethiopia. Somaliland, a self-declared breakaway republic, has been seeking recognition as a sovereign state. The nullification of the port deal could hinder Somaliland's efforts to gain international recognition and could potentially lead to disappointment and frustration among its leadership and population. If the deal is nullified, Ethiopia would continue to face the challenge of lacking direct access to the sea, which could impact its economic and strategic interests. There has been a history of territorial conflict and hostility between Somalia and Ethiopia. In 1977, Somalia invaded the disputed border territory of Ogaden, which is now part of Ethiopia. Ethiopia responded and eventually won the war, leading to the decimation and defeat of the Somali army. This conflict played a role in Somaliland breaking away from Somalia. Somalia has called the growing ties and military cooperation between Ethiopia and Somaliland an act of aggression and an assault on its territorial integrity. An all-out war between Somalia and Ethiopia could also greatly hamper the operations of the African Union Transition Mission in Somalia, which includes thousands of Ethiopian soldiers. The current military capabilities, internal challenges, and geopolitical dynamics suggest that an all-out war between the two countries would have significant consequences and could potentially destabilize the region further. Engaging in diplomatic dialogue and negotiations is crucial to address the concerns and grievances of all parties. Open and constructive communication can help foster understanding and find common ground. Mediation efforts by regional or international actors could also facilitate dialogue and promote a peaceful resolution. Seeking international support and engagement can play a crucial role in finding a win-win solution. Cooperation and collaboration among Ethiopia, Somalia, Somaliland, and other regional stakeholders could contribute to stability, security, and economic development in the Horn of Africa. International actors, including the United Nations, African Union, and other relevant organizations, can provide mediation, technical assistance, and support to facilitate negotiations and ensure a fair and equitable outcome.